Tomorrow you can catch him furiously pacing the sideline against the number 8 seed Lakeland Muskies, but today he has the pleasure of sitting down with me as I am joined by the head coach of the number 1 seed in the NACC Tournament and the regular season champion MSOE Raiders, head coach Kevin Hurd. Coach.
Is it really that bad? I don't think I'm that bad over
I was
there.
going to say furiously felt strong, but how else do you describe pacing?
Yeah.
Other than furiously.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, consistent maybe.
Yeah, that's that's the friendlier
yeah, I'm not
word.
really sure. That's a great. I never
That's
really
fair.
thought
Furiously
about that.
was definitely aggressive on my part.
Yeah, I never really think about it when I'm doing it.
All right, Coach, we're 48 hours removed from the big game. Talk me through the emotions from tip-off to the end. I was writing recaps, watching the game back at my apartment. JB dunks the ball. I stand up. I'm flexing in front of my computer screen. My fiance's like, what are you watching? I'm like, MSOE's played. She's like, you just left. I'm like, no, but we're in the championship game. You don't understand. Then Ethan Johnson dunks the ball. And I texted you after the game. I hadn't felt that way since the 2016 NBA Finals in a basketball game. But when Ethan dunked it, those were pure emotions I felt. And I was like, I don't think I've actually felt that since like Derrick Rose was a bull. Like that was it was awesome to see you guys celebrate. On top of it all, you do senior day to cap everything off. Walk me through Saturday.
It's still kind of a blur, to be honest with you. Just so many positive things happen. To just talk about the game, two really good teams. I'd like to think, speaking more about myself than the other, but two really good coaching staffs. I have a lot of respect for Steve and the job he's done there really quickly. And, two good teams, two good coaching staffs going at it. And on top of senior day, on top of all the other implications within the league, it very much had the feel of a true conference tournament championship game, but it was the final game of the regular season. And so for us, you're dealing with a lot of potential distractions, right? Senior day, and we were fortunate to have all of our seniors' parents come in. I think about Brock's parents coming all the way from North Carolina, JB's from Texas.
That's awesome.
We had everybody there.
That's awesome.
And so that can create a lot of things that potentially you don't want,
Sure.
right? But I thought our guys handled it really well, and fortunately we were able to come out on the positive end. But a lot of energy. It was tense in the gym there for a really long time, and luckily we were able to make just a few more plays and come out ahead.
For sure. It's awesome to have, like you said, all the families in the crowd. And you said it can be a little bit of a distraction, They're not here at every game.
Right.
That's definitely going to disrupt a little bit of the emotion, but going back to that game, it felt like it was the final score does not indicate what the game was actually like.
Yeah.
Because through the first 3 quarters, it was heavyweight battle. It was you guys giving your best punch, Aurora taking it, and then answering back, bringing their deficit back. You guys extend the lead back up. And then it wasn't really until that last 10 minutes or so of the game, if that, where you guys finally break away and make it the double-digit game that it became. How hard is it to put stock into an accomplishment like that? Because as awesome as everything is, you said it's not the conference tournament championship. It's just the last game of the regular season. It's no small task, what you guys accomplished. But at the same time, doesn't guarantee an NCAA tournament bid. So how do you give your messaging as a coach when it's awesome on one hand, but not exactly what you need on the other?
Right. Well, a quick turnaround too, right? We play Saturday and tournament game Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
So you don't even kind of get a chance to celebrate it maybe as much as you would like. But
Sure.
we had an awesome get together with families after the game and honored our seniors kind of in our own way, even though we did it after the game as well. So, but as a coach and as a team, you have goals that you've set throughout the season. You come back to school and everybody's excited to see each other, and you kind of got to have those team discussions about, hey, what are we trying to accomplish this year? And for us, our program, we always want to be in contention for a conference title. That is the standard here. That's what it should be. I think, Coach Miller did it before I did. That was always the goal every year. And so those are all the conversations that we've ever had. And I'm just really proud of our group because we had an extremely tough non-conference schedule. I think with the 7 teams that we played, I think 5 of those teams were ranked at some point in the top 25 or receiving votes, so in the upper kind of echelon of Division III. And so that's a test that we wanted to give this team, and there were plenty of times where things weren't going so great.
Sure.
And we could have gone the other way. And in conference play, I think we really focused. We really figured out who we are. The whole season you're trying to figure out what's our identity, and on both sides of the ball, players are trying to figure out roles and all that type of stuff. And I like to think that we're in a pretty good place now. So as much as the conference tournament is kind of everything, in the end, we still had a goal of winning the league and hosting some more games here at the Kern Center. So we're really fortunate to do that this week.
Of course, in a way, that's just step one, so to speak.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about it. You alluded to it there, the quick turnaround over everything. What does this week look like behind the scenes? Without giving away too many of the trade secrets, what kind of challenges do you have to navigate as a coach when it's at least a familiar opponent you're playing against, but a day quicker turnaround than you would like? You got to manage rest. You've got to manage prep. How do you go about that?
Yeah, I think the message to our guys is you can't assume anything. Lakeland they also have a lot of seniors and a lot of guys who can really score the ball, and they play a certain style of play, but I'm expecting them to come in here and play zone and do something different.
Of course.
Right? You can't have any assumptions. So for us, it's focusing on what we do, trying to control what we can control, and then just kind of being ready to roll with the punches, whatever's thrown at us. So like I said, fortunately, we have potentially 3 home games if we can keep taking care of business. So that was really important to us. And now it's, staying healthy. If we do have some minor things that we need to add based on opponent, we'll work on those days in between. But, a lot of video work in there. And you're trying to, focus just as much on yourselves as you are as your opponent. At the same time, in the end, I think the teams that win stick the closest to their own identity. You don't want to put too much stock in somebody else. But at the same time, there's a lot of good players, a lot of good coaches in our league. So, if you're not ready and up on what they're doing and what they could potentially do, you could get embarrassed. So for us, we're just trying to wrap all of that up in a very short amount of time before Tuesday's game.
You put in fancier terms, in layman's terms, you can get got at any time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yep.
How big of a deal is it to have home court advantage throughout the tournament? I know as a player, obviously, you don't have to go. You can do your entire pregame routine as you would. That is great. As a coach, what does home court advantage mean?
I think it means a lot. And I think as a player, not that I played not that long ago, right? But also as a coach, too, I'm figuring out, everybody, you just deal better with routine, right?
Sure.
And when you're at home, it's a lot easier to have a routine. You're sleeping in your own bed, and you're waking up maybe at the same time. You have class throughout the day at the same time. You kind of know what to expect.
Yep.
When you're traveling on the road, there's variables. You could catch Milwaukee traffic at the wrong time, right? You get somewhere 20 minutes later than what you should. All those things. I like that we can kind of control what we do as a team. And so routine, that's huge for us. And then, kind of my message to everybody else is our home court advantage. Let's get some fans here. Let's get some people, loud in the stands, and let's make it a tough place to play.
You saw the social media post just went out. Free pizza, first 100 students.
Yeah.
We're doing our best to pack the place.
Absolutely.
Getting into the nitty gritty here, when it's the end of the season, the playoff push here, how difficult is it as a coach when you get to this time of year and you have to cut the rotation down? Because you also have to keep the guys that you're maybe trimming their minutes. You got to keep them ready because we might be faced with an XYZ situation, like you said.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge, and we've played a good number of guys this year, and it is difficult decisions to make, but. The thing that I said after Saturday's game, delivering speeches about our seniors, is that I feel really strongly about our team that their heads and hearts are in the right place, and that's with MSOE basketball. I feel like this is, the past couple of years have been the most closely knit group we've had. There's a lot of unselfish guys in there, and we spend a lot of time talking about that, and so those decisions are hard, but I know that those guys, they fully support MSOE men's basketball, and that's what makes this group so special. And so as coaches, we have to make those hard decisions sometimes, but at the same time, this season, we've played those guys and built up confidence, and so we have a lot of trust that they'll be ready if their name's called.
For sure, and I think you hear those words, unselfish, selfless, you hear those thrown out a lot, like the buzzwords. But I think the teams that you see advance the furthest are the ones that truly exemplify that.
Absolutely.
Coach, before I let you out of here, 2 years ago, 12-14, 9-9 in conference. If I said you were going to be in this position, I have no doubt that you would have believed it. But I've got to ask, did you think it would play out the way that it has? Do you look back and think of like one moment or maybe one series of events that was like a catalyst for this team that turned it around?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I don't really know what I had for dinner yesterday. So it's hard to remember a lot. But no, it's been a really long road with these guys, and it's hard to have a long-term scope at times. But
Sure.
I know when those guys were younger, we did. Like we talked about these moments that we've had this year. Playing ranked teams and on the road, at home, neutral site. Playing in big games that mattered on the stretch, and every single thing that I think we've done to help them accomplish that, we did that in the past, and it might not have given us maybe that instant gratification right away.
Of course.
But playing, tough opponents, I think really helps. This year and it was kind of an afterthought, but this year we scrimmaged UW Whitewater. I mean, they just went out and won their league outright. We've played Point the past couple of years, and we've split that series. And they're one of the best programs in Division III, and have a lot of respect for them. And traveled down to Elmhurst this year. Great coaching staff, great players, and a very good league. Carroll's just down the road in the CCIW, a great league. So, and then out in Vegas, it was Redlands, who's still a top 10 team, I believe, and then Occidental at the time was undefeated when we played them, and I think they just beat Redlands either last week or the week before. So, we really had a lot of challenges, but that was on purpose to get our guys ready. And then in the years prior, you are taking a little, few lumps with younger players, and you're working on skill development and making guys, go down a path of having great habits and wanting to get better. And so I feel like a lot of things have fallen for us that way, but it's been a lot of hard work. And like I said, maybe the gratification hasn't been there right away, but we did feel really strongly about our team. And depending on how you look at it, we potentially had a better team last year, right? Unfortunately, Mattis DePiric had a season-ending injury last year. We had Jonathan Burrows was, hit or miss throughout the year with some injuries and that type of stuff. But you have Donovan Carter in that group. Jonathan Burrows has really, JB's really, elevated his game this year. And he was coming off the bench for us last year, because you had Donovan Carter, who was so rock solid in every facet of the game, and he was a leader for us. And so that kind of keeps me up at night a little bit, but there's nothing that we can do about it now. So, but every question we've seen to ask our team right now, they've stepped up and answered. So just really super proud of the guys who've stepped up, their leadership in the locker room. And obviously you have Mason, who's been doing it for a really long time. But I think about guys like, Carson Cordelli and Chase Cummings, like those guys have really stepped up in a big way. And then you're mixing in other guys, Ethan Johnson and Joey Jindusa, like those guys have really stepped up, from a leadership perspective, and just, adding a little more maturity to the room while we're bringing along some of these young guys. We've given Isaac Witt time this year, CJ Valente, Dan Franklin, all those younger guys on our roster, like they have so many good role models on the team that's helped us elevate our game in practice, which when you have really competitive practices, that stuff shows up in games. So
100%.
Just super proud of this group. And, I've already mentioned, Brock Adams, like that was a special day for him on Saturday. And it was really fortunate we got our other Mason on the floor.
I was going to say, I was just about to bring him up.
That was a really special situation because obviously he has a broken hand. We weren't going to give him any minutes, but, luckily that situation worked out. And I feel bad for him because, he's worked really hard. And then he had, his senior season kind of cut short with injury. And then all of our freshmen on the team, I've already mentioned Dan, Dubem, Aguilo, Quinn Rosenberg, those guys have gotten some minutes. Colby Henderlong, he dinged his ankle and he's, done for the rest of the year. And then Jace Paul, like he unfortunately just went to the hospital recently with a collapsed lung.
Yeah.
Right. So, what a crazy turn of events for him. Brady Gregg is another reserve of ours that, he dinged his ankle. So he's, kind of out. So we've been kind of stringing it together, in practice. But, our scout team and, those guys who haven't received a lot of minutes have been really, instrumental in our success. The one guy that I haven't talked about who's the quietest of the group is Chad Copeland. He's another sophomore for us. But those guys have done an excellent job of just bringing it in practice every day. And circling back to the very first part of your question, right, I didn't lose focus on that, is just over the years, those guys have delivered in practice, and that has helped elevate us as a team. And so, the guys who play the starting five, they get a lot of love, and it's, they deserve it,
of course,
because they've worked their tails off. But at the same time, they got guys in practice making them better every day. So, it's just a great group of kids. And as coaches, we don't worry about a whole lot. And it sucks that some of those guys have gotten injured here at the end of the year. But
of course,
a little more motivation for us to go out and win.
For sure. And Coach Miller had a great point on the broadcast when Mason checked in. He was like, all right, when we're on offense, you're on defense. And when we're on defense, you're on offense. You shouldn't be on the same side of the court as the other 9 guys.
Right.
But you laid it out there. I mean, it's not just the starting 5 that builds a team. It's the coaching staff. It's the guys maybe at the bottom of the rotation, the freshmen just coming in, all the way up to those guys that are logging 30 minutes every night.
Right.
So it's been awesome to see that team, the growth since basically I've been here. I've been able to see that full elevation. It's really, really a gift to see.
Yeah.
Coach, want to wish you good luck and the whole team good luck as we gear up for the NACC tournament here. Tuesday, 7 o'clock, number 8 seed Lakeland Muskies coming to town. Wishing you guys the best.
Okay, free pizza. Got to be here.